What's up, guys, and welcome to the Iron Con Raid Guide. As always, we will be in 25-man mode, and I believe I was playing Frost the first time we killed this, and as always, the abilities will be scrolling above my head. So please take time to pause it and read those if you'd like a little bit more detailed explanation on each individual ability. There's a ton of stuff to cover in this fight, and it really does seem a little overwhelming, but once you get used to it, it's really not that bad, guys. You can do this fight as long as you're focused and you just understand exactly what each phase entails, okay? The nice thing about this fight, first off, is you can pop hero twice, especially if you're just getting into it in progression, because there is, I believe, a 12-minute enrage timer, so if you use it at the beginning, at the end, once you hit 2 minutes left, you can use it again, and you're using it during an execute phase. So being able to use that twice in this fight is really good. The reason that you want to use it at the start, definitely, is because the fire guy, how this boss works is one boss, he rides different Quilin, or whatever those mounts were that they gave us if you bought the digital deluxe version. Yeah, he's got a bunch of different ones of those that do different abilities. So the first one's the fire guy, right? What you need to do is when the fire guy is going, you want to stay spread out. You want to have groups, but you want to have them spread out. As you'll see, we have markers all around the room. So right now our group is stacked up. The reason you do want to stack up is because if the boss's energy bar fills up, he starts doing an ability that will pretty much one-shot you, so you don't want that to happen. So what you do is you have your different groups assigned. If you want to put out raid markers like we do, it's really the easiest way to do it, and you stay spread out until the raid leader tells your group to stack. Now once you stack, understand that the boss will now has the ability to do another ability that hurts the group. It splits 700,000 damage between the group, and then it also adds a stack. So what you want to do is you want to stay stacked up for a couple ticks of that and then spread back out. Healers in that group, be aware that they are going to be taking massive damage. Healers that are spread out around the rest of the room, understand what the group makeup is so that you can kind of help heal, maybe throw down some AoE heals onto that marker, you know, healing rain, maybe a swift men with a rejuve, whatever you need to do just to kind of help out that healer, whoever's over there. But then as soon as you take a couple ticks of that, you want to spread back out, watch his energy bar, and then go to the next guy, or go to the next group, and so on and so forth. We had a melee group, and then 2 range groups, and that seemed to work out fine for us with our DPS at the time. And then you just keep cycling this ability. The only other ability that he does, but he does it throughout, is throw spear. In this phase, as you can see, the throw spear leaves fire. You just don't want to stand in that, obviously. Sometimes you may have to move to stack up. You can run through it, you don't want to stand in it. It will stack and it will hurt, and it does a lot of bad things to you, so just don't stand in fire, pretty much is the bottom line. Pretty Raid 101 eccentric thing. The next guy that he calls down is the lightning and wind guy. Would kind of be the easiest way to describe this one. What you're doing here is, again, you're sticking to your spread formation. You don't need to stack up, but then every so often he will suck the group together like you're seeing right now, and you will have to dodge tornadoes to get to the other side. The really nice thing about this phase is, especially as a mage and a worgen, is I have Dark Flight and Blink, which makes that phase pretty much GG for me. What you want to do, guys, is once you get outside of the circle where the tornadoes are, stay spread out, okay? And this is the hardest part in 25-man. The reason that I say this is because, as you'll see here, the random tornado decided to chase me for a while. But what you really want to do is you want to stay spread out during this phase. The reason being is it's just better. You don't want to take extra damage. Arc lightning hurts, and that way anyone who gets arc lightning can be broken out very quickly, okay? Now what that ability is, you'll see somebody get it, they are stunned. They can't do anything until someone clicks them out. Similar to Windlord, when someone would get the amber traps, very similar ability. Just run over, click them out, think of it the same way, and you're good to go there. In this phase, the spear, if you stand in the spear droppings, as I like to call them, again, bad things happen, so don't do that. It changes abilities as the different spears come out, but what the most important thing is they're all detrimental to you as a person. You do take damage, and you normally will lose some kind of ability or be susceptible to a higher amount of damage, which then makes you more squishy, higher chance of dying, etc. So be aware of that. That's the biggest thing, okay? He will probably do the suck up thing twice with the tornadoes. If you get it more than twice, you should probably just wipe it because you're probably not going to hit the berserk timer. And I'm being serious. It's especially when you're just getting in here and you're in the gear that we were in. I think our item level average during this fight, the first time that we killed it, was around like 505, 506, somewhere in there. And I mean, we were pushing right up close to the berserk timer. So just be aware of that. If you're not pushing DPS during that phase, it's essential that you do that. Again, the reason you're staying spread out is if you're not and you cast that ability, it will pretty much chain lightning to people around you, doing an obscene amount of damage again. And this fight is long, guys. It's got a 12-minute enrage, so your healers are going to run low on mana. So the goal is to try to save as much mana as you can for them for that final phase, because during that final phase they're taking a ton of damage, so keep that in mind as well. That's just another aspect of this fight, is if everybody's not taking the avoidable damage, it makes the unavoidable damage pretty easy to heal through, and it allows you to kind of save your mana. And that's really the biggest thing, is kind of conserving your mana until you get to the final phase. Now, the next dog that he calls down, this is the shield dog, is probably the easiest way to say that. And what the shield dog does is he will put up shields on two sides of his body. You want to, obviously, if you can get to where you can DPS him, go ahead and do it. But if you have to run through the whole raid to do it, to get to a place where you can DPS him, probably don't do it. The reason being is in 25-man mode, you don't want to spread debuffs any more than you have to, and someone will mess it up. So just keep that in mind, that once it says that the debuff is gone and your entire raid's clear of it, then you can stack up and kind of move around the room. But likely in 25-man mode that won't happen, just because if you're tanking him where you should be tanking him during this phase, which is at the entrance, you're not going to have a ton of room to spread out. Now, people might be asking, why do you tank him there? Well, it's because then it almost negates an entire set of abilities during this phase, which is the tornadoes and the last phase. Like, the tornadoes are still in the room, okay? But they don't tend to come over towards the entrance. So that's why you see all these groups tanking him over there, is because for some odd reason, like you can see the tornadoes behind me, but for some odd reason they just don't like to come over there. So it allows you to kind of negate an entire set of abilities and a whole set of movement and pairing effects for the entire fight while you're over here. Now, randomly you may have one that comes over like you see here, but for the most part you won't have that. If it does happen, it happens rarely, and it's not a big enough deal to where it's really going to affect your entire raid throughout the remainder of the fight, so be aware of that. The next but that's really all this guy does. Again, you can see the pools. What happens is I just stood in that pool for a while. My casting speed is incredibly decreased. My movement speed is decreased until that falls off. So it's a huge DPS loss if you stand in that, okay? So that one's also extremely detrimental. So be careful of that. Once you do get this guy down, though, guys, it's extremely simple for the last phase. As soon as the debuff falls off and you know that no one has a debuff, you just stack up and burn the boss down. Again, you're going to be popping hero. You can stay spread out if you range, but again, for healing purposes, it's easier to not. There will be one person who needs to run out every once in a while for another ability, as always. But for the most part, you're just sitting here, just burning the boss and popping your hero again as soon as it's up. This is what you're saving your second pots for. This is the burn phases after this guy dies, and the last boss comes down. The reason that you're doing that is because he does a fist smash that does more damage and more damage and more damage as the fight progresses, as he's there. So you need to start out, you don't really need to use cooldowns. By the end, you're using everything you have. That's why burning this boss as quickly as possible is extremely important, to the point where that's why you're using hero, that's why you're saving your pot. Sorry. And then that's pretty much the whole fight, though, is it's just a burn phase at that point. Again, this is where all the little things that you did leading up to this phase really make the difference for your healers, okay? Healers need to understand that they have to keep everybody alive, but going into this phase, if you're only at 20% mana or 10% mana and you don't have any way to get it back, you're gonna have a bad time. This fight, especially during this phase, you can see like our damage isn't a ton right now, but as this fight goes on, when he starts fist smashing, like you just see the health go down and down and down and down and down. And we're just cycling cooldowns at this point. We have personals lined up. Everything else has already been predetermined, so that way while we're pulling, we know who's going next, who's going when, who's going where. I'm calling it out via Ventrilo or Mumble and making sure you're doing that. But guys, I'm telling you, this fight is really, really good. There's a lot of different abilities. You do get an achievement. It's a personal achievement. If you don't stand in any of them, it is not a group-wide achievement, so be aware of that. And that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that you're staying out of stuff that you're not supposed to be in, that you're positioned correctly, and always thinking about positioning during this fight. Is where's the best spot for me to be? Where should I be? Is this a good spot to DPS? Am I safe here? And then you just adjust accordingly based on different variables, which would be, you know, is the spear thrown at me, or et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, especially in a 25-man mode, remember, there's not a ton to move for all the time because there's so many other people. Okay, so you can do this fight pretty easy. Again, it will take you a little bit of work. It will take you some tricks with the DPS to kind of learn how to maximize your DPS. Obviously, getting used to the different phases is going to be the biggest time sink on this fight. But once you get through it, and you start to realize how everything works, this fight is a really, really good fight. It's got a little bit of everything that you want in it. Not real high movement, but a fight where your awareness matters a lot. You do have to do some moving, some dancing, but it's very, very good. So I think you guys can get this fight down. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.